Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast. So on today's episode, I am having one of my very close friends that I've known about 10 years. And so this is more of a girl talk, just conversation. Today's topic is going to be more on just having the society standard of being 25 and having your life a certain way. We're going to be discussing about career, dating, just the path of life and how things, go, and just having a good, fun talk. So let's just get right into it. So on today's episode, I have one of my very close friends, Michell Martinez. Welcome to Beauty Marks Podcast.
Hi, Liz. So glad you have me on here. I'm honored.
Yes, I've been telling her, I'm like, honestly, girl, I'm going to have you because at the end of the day, I have amazing women that come on here. But also, you guys are going to get to know people that I surround myself around and that have been there, my support, that have seen through the tears, through the laughs, and that have really been there for me personally. And I feel like that's so important to me. So I'm going to have these people on, and she is one of them. So today we're going to be just talking, but let's go into how we first met.
So we met sophomore year of high school. We tried out for soccer together. We both decided we wanted to have the high school experience, get into something, try new things out. I never played a sport in my life. I don't think you did either.
No, I mean, I did, but when I was young, I did soccer and volleyball.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I liked, but everyone that I knew that I liked was doing soccer, so we both just went in together, not really knowing what we were getting ourselves into, and ended up being a 2-year commitment for me, but a 3-year commitment for you. But honestly, we had the best time and the best memories in soccer.
I mean, it was mostly, with sports, is I got to meet so many people. But then I feel like we also were neighbors. So we literally lived down the same street. Once I started driving, I would take her to school with me. And so we were buddies to go to school. And I feel like we just kind of merged our lives. We were pretty much always together.
Yeah, we did everything together.
On the weekend. So if you ever wanted to know how I was in high school, Michelle has the tea. And so I was telling her, I was like, it's crazy. You've known me for 10 years.
Yes.
And something that I think about is how much we've changed. And I feel like when I think about Michelle in high school, I mean, she was very low key. I mean, still is, to be honest, but she was just very to herself, just very nice, in the way that I feel like no one would mess with her, but she was just calm. I feel like that's how I remember you. You were just calm, you were just going with the flow. You were not as on top of things like me, for example.
Yeah.
And then also I feel like, she's changed with once you adult, it's kind of you see, you're like, oh my God, their character has changed so much. Now I feel like you're so outspoken, way more outspoken.
Yes.
And she's super independent. And it's just crazy to see, how life has changed, but I always have good memories together.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy to see the things that stick with you throughout. Liz in high school was always known as the sweetheart. She could do no harm. She could not hurt a fly. And I feel like you're almost still kind of that person. I cannot picture you actually being mean to someone or insulting someone. I can't see it come out of you. Not then and not now.
I mean, I definitely can't have those moments. But I definitely was. If anything, I also feel like I was naive, very kind of just very innocent in a way.
Yeah.
In high school. So, I got exposed to a lot of other things outside of high school.
Yes.
But we definitely have a lot of good memories, and what is one memory that you would say, or the drama in high school that we should talk about? What do you remember the most, you would say?
Well, I definitely remember I was always the single one in high school. All my friends, including Liz, were always in relationships on and off. So I definitely remember being the person that was in the middle of everyone's relationship drama. Yeah, I definitely remember your little high school thing you had going on. And
okay, I just want to pause really quick because I just remembered in my last breakup with my ex, you remember senior year, 2 days before prom, Michelle was actually in the car. You were in the car live when it happened, when all the tea came out. So you were literally in the car when it all went down. all the tea, all the drama. And honestly, Michelle has been like the most supportive. She's been through the heartbreaks and the hurts. And like, it's just kind of crazy. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful for her. So it's just crazy. But overall, right now, like, what are you up to? What are you passionate about?
So I guess, well, when we went to Valencia together in the beginning, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I decided, well, just go to school for something that's going to make you money, because that is always what my parents, that's what everyone's parents tell you. Go to school, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a businessman. So I signed up for Valencia and did my major as business administration, not knowing anything about it, completely hating it, hating math, first of all. So good luck getting a degree in business when you hate math. Anyone who knows me knows I can't do math. And then I kind of went into this weird kind of 1 year phase of not knowing what I wanted to do. So, but I just kept going to school because I figured you might as well knock the classes out. And then I finally decided to change my major to general eds, general AA. And then I said, well, then that's going to be good because I'll just get my AA and then decide what I want to do after. And the end of my AA was coming up real quick and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I finally decided I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do, but was always told not to do, which was interior design. So my parents basically always told me, if you want to do interior design, that's fine. But just so you know, you're going to starve to death. And that's the perception I've had of interior design for a very long time, knowing I wanted to do it for a very long time, and I just never pursued it. Finally, after reading up more about it and talking to people who were in the field, I realized that it wasn't anything like I thought it was. And it was so much more. There was so much more to it. And there was actually money in the business, because my parents had the perception that interior design was, well, when have you ever seen us hire someone to come over and decorate the house? But it was just so much more than that, especially commercial wise. And it was more just like structure and space planning. And I loved interior design even more when I found out that it was more than decorating, and decided to pursue it. Loved every second of it. That was probably when I was 22. I pursued it. Still didn't get my AA, because then I found out I didn't need it for it, that I would have to get an AS. So I basically had to start all over anyways. And I was like, you know what? Throw everything in the trash, start clean slate, 22, let's do it. And I'm 25 now. I graduate this December with my bachelor's. Ooh. And honestly, I have loved every second of my degree. Like I honestly can say I chose the right thing. I never one point felt like, well, is this right for me? Should I change? Should I look into something else? Do I want to do this? Never. And that's how I know that this is what I was meant to do from the start. So honestly, you should always just like pursue what you want to pursue, and don't let other people tell you otherwise, because if you pick things in life based off of what other people think you should do, you're never going to be happy.
So no, I definitely agree. And I'm glad that you finally did it. And I remember when you had switched over and you're like, well, I have to start all over. That was a whole conversation of like, oh my God, I should be done. Like I should have been done. Like if I would have done this in the beginning, first off, then I would have been done by now.
Yes.
And I remember having that conversation with you. And it's crazy that most of the time, like we know what we want to do, but we don't know how the money part is going to go. And of course, like our families members think about those things. Like they think about, okay, but like how are you going to provide? How are you going to do this? But in reality, it is your passion and your purpose and what you want to do. If you do that well, you can make good money. I mean, yes. Nowadays, especially in 2020, people are doing things that you would think 10 years ago, like, how would you do that? You know, how can you do that? And so I love what you said, because it's like, even when you want to get a degree in something, once you start actually looking into it, you're like, well, maybe like what I really want to do is this, and that's okay to change.
Yeah.
You know, so for you, you only change it twice, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it took you just that point.
Yes. And that was also, what you said about me being 22 and feeling like I should have been done. That was a really big thing for me. I knew I was going to do it regardless, because it was never this wall that I ran into of, well, do I want to start over at 22? I did, because I knew that I was going to be happier doing this. But it was the battle of, if I had just known, if I had just done this from the start, if I just hadn't let those things that my parents said get to me, and I would have been done. And I would have. I'm 25 and I have an AA, an AS, certified to stage homes, and gonna have a bachelor's. But
she is full of degrees, educated.
The idea of, I could have had all 3 degrees. I could have had that at 22. I could have. However, you can't dwell in the past. If you can't go back and change it. And like, what was it that I read something earlier that was like, people are nervous about starting all over at 28 because you think a 4-year degree is going to leave you ending at 32. But wouldn't you rather be 32 and happy for the rest of your life than still battling, what you were trying to find out what you want to do?
Yeah, because time is still going to pass.
Yes.
Like, no matter what, your time is so precious. And like, what you do with that time, like, why not start again? Like, there's no deadline. And I feel like I've talked about this in other episodes with the podcast, is just like the pressure of like, you have to have deadlines.
Yes.
And it's like, but why? Like, what are we racing for? Like, who's putting these deadlines? So when it comes to the deadlines, I mean, how do your parents feel about it now?
Well, they're proud of me, of course. They get to flaunt their daughter has a degree. I'm also first generation. No one else in my family has a degree. No, not my parents, not my brother. Sorry if he's listening to this. Not my grandparents, not my great-grandparents. I'm the first one in everyone in my family to have a degree. So of course they're very proud of that moment. But I think they do still have their doubts of, well, are you going to find a job? Are you going to be able to live on your own? Are you going to do well in it? And the only other thing would be like, they do kind of constantly remind me like, Michelle, you're 25. You are still living at home, because I moved out for some time, got distracted along the way, slowed down my educational path, and had to move back home, which was a huge change for me. I had never planned on moving back home. I did not want that for myself, but I was financially tied up and I couldn't. And I knew if I want to finish school, which was my number one priority, I could not live at home. And so moving back home was very tough for me. So my parents kind of held that over my head too for a little bit, because they were like, oh, well, now look at you. Now you're here. What are you going to do now? How are you expecting to finish? We better see you picking up the pace. We better see you doing something with your life now. So there was a lot more pressure moving back home. Yes, I was able to save money, but there was so much more going on too that it just, in a way, didn't help, but at the same time motivated me, because I wanted to get out of there. I mean, I still do want to get out of there so bad. I want to feel like I'm my own person. I don't want to be 25 living at home, which I know the idea of this topic was that it's okay to be there. But I know for myself, I have the standards set for myself that I want to begin the next chapter in my life. I'm ready. I am right there. So it's just kind of the pressure of having that on me kind of motivated me too, to really pick up the pace and work my butt off to get to where I'm planning on getting to in 5 more months.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say I'm so proud of you. Literally so proud of you, because I know you worked so hard. And that's one of the things that I admire of you, because even throughout the time and how long it's taken and all the hurdles and things you've had to jump over to get here, like, you haven't stopped. And if anything, like, when people tell you can't do something, you're the type of person that is like, well, I'm going to show you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, don't come
I love
at me.
a challenge.
You do. No, and I admire that, honestly. I really do. So first of all, again, she is going to be 1 degree more, and we're going to celebrate, even if it's under the circumstances of quarantine.
Can you imagine going to school for 7 years and not being able to walk? I've been at Valencia since 2013, and now they tell me I cannot walk.
I know.
But sorry. I know everyone's going through it.
No, I know. And that's one of the things that I told her, like, we're going to figure it out. Okay, we're still going to celebrate. We're still going to get the degree. But no, that is something that, like, I feel like with the support of other people, sometimes, I mean, there's goals for yourself, and I admire that even though, yes, you're in this position right now, but like, you still are looking for the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from like I guess, school, you know, which became a priority, which for me, that was the same thing. I was like, I want to finish school, like for me personally, and there's no shame for people that took a different path. But for me, that was like, I want to do that for myself. I am another one that's like first generation, you know, so like that was important for me, for my future generations, like, you know, to tell them, hey, like go to school, you know, and all of that. And my degree has helped me and I've been able to work in it. But what other kind of pressures do you feel like you have had, like when it comes to relationships? Because you mentioned earlier, she's always been the single friend,
Yes.
which honestly, guys, whoever is listening to this is one thing that I feel like if you've never been in a relationship, you always think you're missing out. Or like if you've never been in a long-term committed relationship, especially in high school, you think that like you're missing out, like what's wrong with me? I promise you, and maybe Michelle, I want to hear your point. I would rather have gone through no dating in high school and waited until I was in college and just kind of knew myself better than to have the heartbreaks. Because when you go through a breakup, let's just say you feel like you are dying. Like it is one of the worst experiences. So side note, just there's nothing wrong with you. If you did not have a relationship or you didn't go through that stuff, like there's nothing wrong. Like you are saving yourself. You are saving yourself.
Yes, I was always the single friend, and sometimes I still can tend to be. When I was in high school, all my friends were in relationships except for my one best friend, Leah. Shout out. But I truly don't feel like I missed out on anything looking at it now. Back then I did, because obviously I saw what all of you guys got to do, going out date nights, ice cream, McDonald's, lunchtime, and all of that sounded so great. And the fact that either I wasn't a part of that or I was third wheeled to that or fifth wheeled. And so when I was in high school, I did definitely want that. But looking back at it now, when I think of high school, I think of how great all my friends were. We had an amazing group of friends, especially through soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't change it now for anything. We went to prom all together. We had a blast at prom, just friends. And honestly, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't change. Like, you're right when you say you're not missing out on anything. You're really not. As you get older, I can see how those standards do change and everyone's mindset on it changes, especially as you begin to mature and grow and your expectations out of a relationship grow with you. Then yes, I can see it.
So with that, how has your mindset when it comes to relationships now at 25 or even dating, let's be honest, at 25?
Yeah, so there is kind of a good amount of pressure from people. It's not from my parents either, which thank God, because my parents know, first of all, I don't want kids, which is a big thing for me. And I hear it all the time. And that's the one I hear the most. I hear, you don't want kids more than you don't want to get married. The pressure of not wanting kids ever in life is so much bigger than not wanting to get married, I think, because that's just something that is so expected of you, especially at 25. So many people have kids at this age, and it's okay. Like, I can't look at people's social media and see them being pregnant and being like, oh my God, look, she's pregnant, because it's like, it's normal. It's just like, oh, congratulations, she's pregnant. She's getting it together, you know? And you reach an age where it's just not a surprise anymore because it's just an expectation. And now I'm reaching an age where it's like, oh my God, she still isn't pregnant. Or like these next 5 years, you know, and I hear it from people. The biggest thing is like when I hear people say, oh, but you would be such a good mom. And my response to that is, why would you want me to see me as a mom that doesn't want to bring a kid into the world? Wouldn't that make me careless? Wouldn't that make me irresponsible? Bringing something into the world that I don't want to take care of, never wanted. And my parents were never also the type that put that pressure on me, because their biggest thing was school and they want me to graduate. But I definitely hear it more from like people at work, people I associate myself around. I've heard it on social media, other people's parents. That's a big one. Other people's parents love telling you that it's time for you to have kids. And the marriage thing too, the big one, no boyfriend, still no boyfriend, still no boyfriend. I hear that one all the time, especially long distance family that you see once in a while, and they come into town and they're like, you're still single? And it's just like, what's wrong with that? What is wrong with being single? And my biggest answer to them is, yeah, I still haven't graduated. Yeah, I'm waiting to get my degree. Yeah, I'm waiting to start my life. I want to live alone, and then maybe I can start associating myself and getting into a relationship and feeling like I'm more ready, but I want to set myself up first.
Yeah. No, I mean, first disclaimer, she has had a relationship since high school, just because you said single before, and I'm like, just letting you know, she has been in relationships.
Oh, yes.
But
a couple.
yeah, so she has been in relationships, but that pressure is so true. It's like people don't celebrate all the other wins that you have in your life, like, graduating, moving out, buying a car, all buying a house, like these other things that you can do as an individual or even a business, like anything like that you're doing is still success, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's still doing good, like you're not missing out. So when it comes to relationships and kind of like your view on that, like has it changed from like when you were 18?
It definitely has. Like when I was in high school, right when I graduated, I wanted to be in a relationship because everyone was graduating high school with their high school sweethearts. And I thought that was, something that I missed out on. When I started Valencia back in 2013, I wasn't taking it so seriously. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So it was kind of one of those things like, well, I'm kind of going to school, so I kind of have time for a relationship too. And that's when I really wanted it. And it just, it didn't happen. I had a relationship, lasted a few months, and then was single for a very long time, got into another relationship, lasted a few years. But it was one of those relationships that needed to end a lot sooner because the feelings we had for each other were lost within the first year, and we just stuck around because we were tied down to things together, aka an apartment. I think that now, the older you get, there's two types of pressure on you. It's either the pressure to hurry up and get into the relationship because it's the one that's supposed to last. Like, I've thought about it so many times that the next guy I date or the next guy I get serious with has to be the guy I get married to. However, also being this age, I have a wide friend age. I know people that are still 20 and I know people that are 30. I'm smack dead in the middle. And the stories that just I hear and the people I work around and the stories I hear about the married life, and I've heard a lot of people my age too say they wish they had waited. They wish they could be in my shoes and still be single and, have worked towards their degree before jumping into a marriage and having kids. And I hear it all the time. And of course, I can't agree with them because I'll never know what that's like. I don't know what they went through. But it makes me feel like maybe I am doing it right, because a lot of the times I do get discouraged and I start to feel like, maybe I should be in a relationship. Maybe I should have found someone by now. Or if I don't find someone by now, I'm probably going to be single for a very long time. And a lot of the times I still do think that, like when I picture myself 35, sometimes I still picture like in the next 10 years, I'm still like, well, I'm probably going to be still single by then. But honestly, no one knows. Tomorrow can change like a light switch, And so it's either the pressure of, am I going to be with someone for a very long time? My next relationship, is that going to be the one? Or am I just going to keep this path and continue to just be single and kind of like grow on my own, like become like, the boss babe that they talk about? Because every time you think of a boss babe, those women are single women, they're flourishing. And I'm like, is that what's meant for me? Is that what I'm supposed to be? There's so many standards, and so many different perspectives of people. And people are always going to have different perspectives of you and where you should be at what age. I get a lot of people telling me, Michelle, you're 25, you're still young. It's okay. Like if you want to start a whole nother degree and go to school for another 4 years, you still won't be 30. And that's fine. And then I get people telling me, oh, well, you're 25, your time clock is ticking. So really, it's 25 is a hard age because like I said, you're smack dead in the middle. And before I turned 25, I had a lot of people who were older than me telling me 25 is going to hit you like a train. You're going to wake up on your 25th birthday and realize where I am in life. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's kind of just like an eye opener. And I was like, that's kind of exaggerating, but it really happened. I woke up my 25th birthday in February and I was like, holy crap. Like, I am 25. I'm not in my early 20s anymore. I'm almost to 30. I mean, not almost, but I am. And where am I in life? What am I doing? What are other people at this age doing? What should I be doing? Or what am I doing right? What have I done right? So it's a constant evaluating of my life and my decisions at 25 from what I have done since 20 and what I plan on doing for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that's something very important to think about. It's like you have to know, yes, your journey might look different than someone else's, but you do evaluate. Like you should look at, okay, any decision that I make right now, it will affect me good or
Yes.
bad. You know, it's different than when you're like 18 and people tell
Yes.
you you're going to, I remember I used to look at 25-year-olds like they were grown adults, and we are grown adults. It's very
Yes.
true. So that's very important. And then also when I think about the whole relationship aspect that I want to go back to, it's like you hear like the good and the bad. And I tell Michelle all the time, like, do not say that you're gonna be friggin' single for like 10 years or that I'm gonna be forever alone. Like, don't say that.
But
Like,
that's okay too.
well, of course, if that's the path that you
Yes.
take. But at the end of the day, I feel like we don't know. And there's nothing, because sometimes we look at our situation like, why don't I have that? But then it's like, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have that in 5, because like how you said, like things can change, you know what I mean? So it's like, you kind of just have to go with the flow and focus on what you're doing now. So like your degree, you know, and you always said that like, this year I have to focus on this and like finish this. And like, once this is over, then I can move on to the next thing. But I think also my perception, definitely from when I was in high school to now, I have changed completely on how I view relationships. Like even the whole idea that like, you know, about the one and all these sorts of things that like
in marriage, you always wanted a rush into marriage. You wanted to be married by 21.
Yes. I remember everyone would look at me like, what? Like you want to, I'm like, yes, it's just, you know,
I want to start young.
Yes, I want to have,
family
you know,
young.
exactly. So it's just like, you really do change and you mature. And I think that that's important. And again, there are people that have like good marriages, you know, but I heard something the other day that I was talking about the obsession of that, like the obsession to be obsessed with like the next thing, like if it's either marriage or what your next life is going to look like you miss out so much. And it's not as great as maybe it will be. Like you have this idea that it's going to be so perfect, but it's probably not that. Like you're actually probably living in your best moment now. So it's like, enjoy this time.
People tend to think that life is about the next milestone, but forget where they're already at or how far they've already come, and to enjoy that moment.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, I know we've grown a lot, you know, in this whole life, and it's true. It's like whatever path you do take, it's the one for you.
Yeah.
So with the change of your mentality with all of this, like what are things that you've learned in the relationships and kind of, you know, breakups, all those things that you go through in your 20s, you know, that what have they taught you?
Living together is not what people think it is. That's definitely one of the big ones, but that's also one that's kind of a given. And just the big one too is to not force things to work, because a lot of people tend to hold on to relationships for so long and let so many years pass them by because they think it will eventually work, that one day it's going to click, and it doesn't. I can tell you right now, it doesn't. And Liz can tell you it doesn't. And it's just a lot of people use the excuse of, I've already invested so much time. And if you use that excuse for everything in your life, you're never going to accomplish things that you want to do, things that genuinely make you happy. You will always be miserable. It's like the same will go with a degree. You know, if you stick with a degree for so long, I know people that graduate and go back to school and start all over because they're so unhappy in it. It's the same in a relationship. It's like just because you were with that person for 3-4 years doesn't mean, well, I already let my whole 20s go by with them. I might as well see where we're at now and see if we can grow in our 30s. No, you have to cut it. You have to let it go, because you want to end it sooner than later, because you still want to enjoy what you have left of what you think are your young, happy years and moments. And if you invest that all into a person, that's all you're going to remember your 20s as, or your teen years as, or your 30s as. You're only ever going to remember being with that person and being so miserable. You wasted so much time being so unhappy when you could have been happy, and you could have been out there discovering yourself and what you like. And people grow apart, and that's the thing. People don't realize, and that's another reason why people don't want to let go, because they think, well, it worked once. Yeah, it worked when you were 18, when you were 20. And like I already said, 20 to 25, it's such an eye opener. It's such a big change that you are bound to change. And that person, if they're in that same age range too, they are bound to change. And it's okay if you guys grow apart. Just be mature about it and let each other go. Because if you are each trying to hold on for your own selfish reasons, then all you're doing is hurting yourselves, you're hurting the other person, and you're wasting your time.
Yeah. It is not worth the suffering. Just let it go. It's really not. And I feel like we think that suffering, especially when it comes to love, is like that's the price that you pay.
Yes.
But I feel like no, like I feel like it has to be freeing. And you are only this age once. I remember going in my therapy session. She was like, if you look back at your breakup and like for every year, put the highlights and the lows, like the highs and the lows of every year. Yes, there was a lot of lows, but it is true that there's still highlights. There's still good things happening in your life, and you can be missing out on those things because you're focusing so much on the stuff in the relationship.
And you could have pursued something else that made you happy. Like if you think, well, I was really happy when I picked up that one hobby, or when I worked out for a month straight. And it's just like, if you let the relationship get in between that and alter all those decisions, you probably just let something go that you could have been very passionate about, that would have made you very happy.
Yeah. So definitely I 100% agree. When it comes to relationships, you do change as an individual, and it's okay. You just have to learn when to let it go, and when you have to know that it's not always about getting the person. It's really not. Like you have to just let things go naturally. And what is for you is for you. You do not have to be chasing, going after whatever it might be. Because I remember thinking this, it's like, you always hear, there's 7 million people in the world, and like, there's so many. Well, first of all, if we like take out, okay, men that are older, that are taller, that are like, you know what I mean, of what you're looking for, there's definitely a smaller pool of things. Condensed. Yeah, but it's like at the end of the day, like you don't obsessing over years, like loss. Like if you're in a relationship for 5 years, and let's say you break up, that, yes, it will hurt, it will suck, you will cry, you will go through the mourning process of it, but it's so much more of a pain you being in it for 20 years.
Yes.
And going through the pain and the hurt, and that it's just like 5 years, then you cry, you mourn, you move on, then you have the rest of your life, compared to you literally suffering years and years and years on end.
Yes. When you stick with it for that long, the biggest, most torturing thing that's going to come out of it is resentment. And that resentment is the worst thing you can live with, because it's a daily reminder. Every time you see that person's face, every time they come up in conversation, you cringe because you think, oh, they took something away from me. They took my 20s away from me. They took my freedom away from me, my chance of having fun and discovering myself. And that resentment, you never let that go. You will never, and it'll eat you alive.
Yeah, until you work in it in therapy.
Until
you go through
which
that.
A lot of people don't.
No, but it's true. It's like you don't want to, resent that. And I mean, that's something else, is like you have to take whatever time you had with someone and just like really take what that taught you. Yes. People have told me, I mean, I'm like a long relationship kind of person. Like I can be in a relationship for years. I'm very like
committed.
Yes. And so that's one of the things that I remember in counseling. She told me, she's like, you have to take the good out of all the bad. Like, you had to take what you need to learn from it, what you learned. It helped you grow in this area. You got better in this. You were able to do this, and let it go. Like, that's it. Like, that's what you got to do. It's like, it's not about mourning the, even though, yes, the time is lost and you can't get that back. But that's what you have to also think. Your time is something that you will never get back. So why would you want to give it to someone that doesn't value it and that's not going to be part of your future?
Yes. We go through those things for a reason, and as cliche as it sounds, they do all teach you a lesson and they do all help you grow. I couldn't imagine being the person I am without going through some of the toughest times. And I am very strong-minded about a lot of things, and I'm very dedicated, and like I said, I like a challenge. When I see something, I want to go for it. And I like to think a part of that came from my past bad experiences. So was it really a waste of time, or was it something that needed to happen to teach me a lesson a hard way? And now I can carry that into my next relationships, into my next decision in life, into the next chapter and things I want to do and people I want to surround myself with. And that's a good thing, So in a way, you gain something from it, and it can be a rewarding thing in your future as long as you turned it into something positive, something you recognize.
Yeah, I agree. So what was your biggest lesson learned of things that you've overcome, like, over the past few years?
My biggest lesson is you really have to do it for yourself. And biggest thing is just stop pleasing other people. I always wanted to make my parents happy. I wanted to do what they wanted me to do. I wanted to do what I saw people around me doing. And it was just like, when I finally decided that I wanted to stop being what other people wanted me to be and put my mind towards what I wanted to be, I worked that much harder for it because it was something that you genuinely want. So you're passionate about it, and you will not realize how hard you are willing to work for something that you really want. I didn't think I had it in me to be a full-time student, work a full-time job, a part-time internship, and deal with other things at the same time, and a breakup. I honestly didn't think I had it in me to work that hard. If you would have told me that I was going to be the person that worked through all of that, I wouldn't have believed you. But it took me finally realizing I am doing this for me and no one else. No one else is going to help me through this. If someone wants to help me, if someone wants to be there for me, that's just a plus, but it's not expected. So when you really realize that you're doing it for yourself, you actually feel a lot happier doing it. You feel healthier doing it. You feel more motivated to do it. You work harder for it. And you just don't allow the opinions of other people to get to you as easy. No one's going to mold you. You're set in your ways. So that's honestly the biggest lesson learned for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important because most people, I did like a poll like a few weeks ago about what was something that you would tell your younger self. And everybody said, don't try to do what everybody else tells you to do. Like, have your own path. Like, follow whatever is for you. Like, don't let the opinions of others dictate your decisions. Because we do that. Because we really try to like people please. And especially as you get older, you realize you're like, wait, if I'm not okay, like if I'm not liking what I do, no one else is going to suffer the consequences of me. Like, they're going to live on their life and then just tell me what I did wrong. But like, it's like, what do I want to do? And then find those people that support that, you know what I mean? And can encourage that. And like, for example, like with you and your degree, now people are on board with you and they're like looking excited for you versus you wanting to do what they wanted, and that's with everything. No, but thank you so much, Michelle, for just having this conversation.
Yes, thank you, Liz, for having me on here. I love it. I love your podcast. I love everything you stand for. I love seeing you do this. You're flourishing in it. And clearly so many people feel the same way and they support you. We're all going to keep supporting you through this. And congrats on it. And I'm just so honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, friend. I love you. And thank you guys for listening. I hope you took some things from this. And again, this is just so that you guys know that we all go through the struggle of just finding the pressure of, your age and other things, other factors, dedicate that. But at the end of the day, do you. And And at the end of the day, find what you're passionate about, dedicate on yourself, and you will see the fruit of that work that you're doing in yourself. And that is key. If the next 5 years for any of you, or even for myself, is me becoming a better person, I would love that. And I would love to get to my best self of me, so thank you guys so much, and make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Follow me on social media at Elizabeth Savvy, and if you want to follow Michelle at Michell Martinez, which I will tag her once I do the video and once I do the promotion. But I appreciate all your support, and I will see you guys in the next episode.